Why do I think Kevin Durant is one of the most overrated players in NBA history? Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to a new video. I hope you're having a great day because today we're discussing my thoughts on Kevin Durant and why I think fans sometimes overrate him a bit. I plan to make several videos about certain players who are very good. I'm not saying Kevin Durant is a bad player. In fact, I think the term overrated is often misused. The first thing people think is that player bad for being overrated? But no, being overrated often means people consider you one of the best ever, when maybe it's not quite that level. When compared to many players, he falls short. In fact, I plan to make more videos about players I consider overrated. Players who are good but rely on a single gimmick. Kevin Durant isn't one to rely on a single-year gimmick, but I think his career falls short of public perception. Durant's biggest achievement was winning MVP, I believe, in 2017. He's also a two-time NBA champion, and he was Finals MVP in one of those championships. He was key in Curry's Golden State dynasty, second only to Steph. Durant was undoubtedly an outstanding player there. Many say he was the best on that team during that era. I personally don't quite agree with that. Curry has proven then and now to be the real difference maker. I believe Golden State without Curry wouldn't have been half as successful. And with Durant, I think he was important too, obviously. He was crucial to the team, but not in the same way as Curry. We've seen Curry win championships without Klay Thompson at his peak, without Draymond Green at his best, and he's been able to lead the team to success. I think Durant has benefited a lot from the Warriors dynasty. Honestly, the idea of him being in the all-time top 10 is questionable. Recently, Durant said it's unfair he's not in the GOAT conversation, comparing him to Jordan, LeBron, and others in that debate, Kareem, Magic, maybe even Curry. But including Durant there seems like a real stretch. Don't get me wrong, Durant is an excellent player. He's an extraordinary player who's proven himself when injury-free. He consistently averages 27 to 28 points per season. He also puts up great defensive and playmaking stats. He's very tall and excels at mid-range and close-range shots. His inside game might be underrated for his potential. Now, I'm not saying Kevin Durant is a bad player, he's clearly not, but his Golden State success saved him from being labeled a failure. When we talk about failures, just being in the NBA is impressive. It's an amazing feat anyone should envy, even bench players. Honestly, I think Durant has only joined super teams. He played in Oklahoma, which had a great team. Then Golden State, where he won championships. After that, he moved to the Nets. Now he's with the Suns. I might be forgetting some teams, but he's always been part of super teams. I admit part of me wants to see Durant lead a team without another superstar beside him, where the game revolves around him, giving 100% every game of the season. This doesn't guarantee a championship, of course, but maybe see a season where he's not on a super team. I'd like to know his limit, scoring 33 points per game, more assists, more rebounds. I'd love to see him like Giannis Antetokounmpo or Nikola Jokic. I'm thinking of other teams like Luka Doncic, players who are clearly well supported. In fact, Luka with Kyrie Irving isn't bad at all, but usually teams aren't made up of 3 or 4 NBA superstars or players with tons of experience. So yeah, it leaves you wondering, like, hey, it's obvious you're chasing accolades and all you're doing is tarnishing your image more because while Stephen Curry on that same team that drafted him has been the face of the franchise his whole career, you've been a sellout looking for where you can win another championship. Will Kevin Durant be able to win another championship? I highly doubt the Suns will be title contenders in the next 10 years. Phoenix is a solid team. In fact, you could call them a super team in quotes. With Devin Booker and I think DeAndre Ayton, well, I consider them a great team, but I believe they're far behind other teams that are clear championship contenders. For instance, the Oklahoma Thunder, Denver Nuggets, and Minnesota are three teams I think are well ahead of the Suns in their conference. And what I wanted to mention earlier, look, Kevin Durant isn't a failure. Obviously, he has championships, he has an MVP, he has an impressive scoring average, and he'll likely retire as one of the top 5 all-time scorers in NBA history, barring any unforeseen circumstances in the next few years. Now, I do include him on this list of players often criticized for not winning a championship. James Harden, one of my favorite players. I'll dedicate a video to him in the future. Russell Westbrook, who also lacks a championship, has clearly declined compared to Kevin Durant. I think these are two very different situations. Nevertheless, he's always been criticized for not winning a championship. Kyrie Irving has a ring, but I think since leaving LeBron, he hasn't been a real contender. He reached the finals with Dallas, but honestly, no one thought Dallas could win more than one game. I'm trying to think of other superstar players without championships like Chris Paul. They're criticized not just for lacking a ring, but the truth is they've been superstars and winners. In fact, all these players have led teams without another superstar. James Harden with the Rockets, Westbrook with the Wizards and Thunder, and Chris Paul with the Los Angeles Clippers. But Kevin Durant has never been a true team leader. They claim he was the leader of the Golden State Warriors. Sure, a team with prime Klay Thompson, prime Stephen Curry, and Draymond Green at his peak. It's hard to believe he was the main guy on that team. Obviously, with the Suns, Devin Booker is the captain and leader. I'm not saying Booker's better, but his Suns' history carries weight. People think Durant will join another super team rather than make history in Phoenix. Chris Paul with the Clippers didn't have a super team either. He played with Blake Griffin, who hasn't done great since then. And that's just how it is. I think Kevin Durant is somewhat overrated as he falls short in historical rankings. And why is he overrated? I previously made a video discussing my top 10 players in NBA history. Here's a quick summary. I included Curry, Duncan, Irving, Magic, Wilt, Russell, the classics. Also Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Kobe, and maybe I'm forgetting someone. Not in that order, but that was basically the top 10. And something I noticed about this top 10, they've won over 12 in a season and more than 3 championships. In fact, I'm not sure if they all had 4 or more championships. I think only one didn't have that many. Now, I'm second guessing myself. I believe they all had 4 championships, except Wilt Chamberlain. Well, Wilt Chamberlain didn't, as he only won 1. But then again, it's Wilt Chamberlain. One thing they all share is joining a team, leading it, and being its constant star. Clearly, players like LeBron James, who we could mention, formed super teams. Well, at least in LeBron's case, whenever he had a super team, he won a championship. He won with Cleveland, he won with Miami, he won with the Lakers. And in all cases, he never became the team's secondary player. On a team he leads, not to mention Jordan, where the gap is much wider. We're talking about a guy with 5 MVPs, 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs. He's in a league of his own, completely different from Kevin Durant. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with 5 MVPs. No, wait, 6 MVPs. If I'm not mistaken, he's the player with the most MVPs in NBA history. 4 championships, 3. I think it's 3 or 2 finals MVPs. Well, if you want to talk about the greatest, it's these 3. And you're far behind in achievements. They'll say he has more points, but first of all, Kareem doesn't have more points. LeBron won't have them, and Michael Jordan, I can't recall if he surpassed him, but remember, Jordan was retired for about 2 years from the NBA at a slightly different stage. It shows in fewer points, yet I think Durant will barely surpass him. If he has, the difference is clear. Jordan's legacy puts him far above Durant. Then they'll come to me saying we should compare Kevin Durant with Larry Bird. We should compare Kevin Durant with Tim Duncan. I don't think he's in that league either, without a doubt. We're talking about Larry Bird being a superstar who, for me, is the best player in Celtics history. And what's more, he might even be in the top two Celtics of all time, but for me, he's the best player in the history of the Celtics, a player who won three MVPs, who won three consecutive championships with the Celtics, a player who revived the NBA at a challenging time in the 80s alongside Magic Johnson, creating one of the greatest rivalries in NBA history, and perhaps in all of sports, I dare say. A player who started and ended with one franchise, three MVPs, three championships, two finals MVPs. Well, I prefer him, honestly. They'll say players back then weren't as good as they are now. That's probably true, but what that player did far surpasses Kevin Durant's career achievements. If Kevin Durant had spent his entire career with the Golden State Warriors and won a third or fourth title, maybe with a Finals MVP, we could perhaps include him in this debate, but he's never been a true team leader. He's never been a player who's won that many championships. He has two, which isn't bad, but we're not talking about three straight NBA titles here. And it's almost the same with Tim Duncan. We're talking about a player who led a historic franchise to four championships. He won four titles, and I think he has 13 finals MVPs or regular season MVPs. I can't remember exactly, but I think one or two. But we're talking about arguably the best player in sports history, especially among winners. A player who made NBA history, making a difference without chasing titles on super teams, but creating the super team himself. He's been crucial. That's the big difference of a leader who adapts teammates to make them much better. In fact, if I had to compare him to someone today, it could be Luka Doncic. I don't know if Luka Doncic will ever leave Dallas, but Luka Doncic is in a project where his teammates aren't at his level, not even close to many NBA teams, yet they've reached the NBA Finals. In fact, they were one of the least expected teams to make it to the Finals, and they did. This speaks volumes about Luka Doncic's winning mentality and skill as a player, and especially his on-court leadership, which I think is what makes the difference in teams that don't seem to have big names, but know how to bring out the best in their teammates. And I think Kevin Durant, for example, doesn't seek this, and I think this, whether they like it or not, ends up costing them points. Definitely, I won't even argue because I think Stephen Curry is a far better player than Kevin Durant, not just as a player, but in terms of his career achievements. He clearly surpasses him in every way. Don't get me wrong, Kevin Durant isn't a bad player, but if you're comparing him to not just the debate of the top three in history, which I think we all agree on, it's Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and LeBron James, who are in a league of their own. But if you include the next tier, like Tim Duncan, Larry Bird, Stephen Curry, and I haven't even mentioned Magic Johnson because I think he's also way above, Durant falls short. He's far from what these players have accomplished. Then if we go further back looking at a top 20, where we could also mention, well, Shaq's in a league of his own, but this guy's definitely worth considering for my top 10. Still, where exactly should I rank him? Maybe alongside Julius Erving, who's also one of my favorite players, but that's about it. He's made significant contributions, been the league's best at times, and among the top three, four players for several years. However, I don't think he was ever truly dominant. He probably wasn't even in the NBA's top five for more than 4 or 5 years. His legacy rests on his extraordinary play, which I'll mention often. Many players are remembered for one great season, scoring 33, 34 points per game. They averaged 12 rebounds and 7 assists per game, won the NBA championship, or reached the finals with a small market team. After that, their performance dipped, and now everyone reminisces about those moments on TikTok or YouTube videos. They remember all that and think it's still happening, but if you watch a Suns game with Kevin Durant, you'll see he's a completely different player, not even the most impactful player on the Phoenix Suns. Now, maybe the Suns win the championship this season and prove me wrong, which would be great because that's what makes the NBA incredible. Well, friends, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it very much. This is my take on Kevin Durant, an extraordinary player, but not comparable to the top 10 players in history. Moreover, if I try to think of a top 20 list, there's a lot to consider. I don't have a clear top 20 in mind, but my top 10 is somewhat set. Still, adding Shaquille O'Neal might not be enough. So maybe we should make a tier list, right? Anyway, friends, I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think about Kevin Durant. And if you feel I'm being unfair, we need to be consistent in our opinions. It's not just about a player's aesthetic appeal, but also their achievements and legacy that are crucial in making history. That's all from me. Don't forget to like and subscribe for daily videos. If you want me to talk about a specific player, team, or make a top list, I'd be happy to. I love discussing the NBA. I'm young and not an expert. I wouldn't call myself a sports expert, but I've been a big fan for about 3 or 4 years. I've always followed the NBA, and I think in this recent phase of my life, I've really consumed the great entertainment that is the NBA. So I want to dedicate my time and enthusiasm to sharing my thoughts about it. So friends, have an excellent day.